So before I get started, just know that anytime throughout the event, you can submit your questions as we're presenting, and we will have staff here answering your questions in the chat as well. So our ISS orientation student leader, Wenwin Tan, so thank you, Win-Win, who's in her last year of studies at McGill and majoring in mathematics, will monitor the chat throughout the event to ensure that we answer as many questions as we can. And then we'll take a lot of your questions as well and answer them live during the Q&A segment with our panelists. I work with Campus Life and Engagement. So we are an office here at McGill that's really dedicated to help your student with this transition to McGill. So we have been in touch with your student throughout the summer, giving them tips about how to get housing, how to register for courses. We are the ones putting on orientation. So we will see your students next week. And then we communicate with students and we offer support throughout their first year and beyond, really trying to help them find their place at McGill, connect with each other, connect with the McGill community, and connect with the larger Montreal community as well.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Annie, so much for that introduction. So as you all know, and you can see from my banner, my name is Bianca, and I am a local wellness advisor in the Faculty of Arts. We also go by LWAS, as you can see by our email here, so that it's easy to remember in case you ever want to direct any of your new students our way. I'm a member of a growing team. We're all members of the Student Wellness Hub. So we're all licensed mental health professionals, and we are now placed in each and every one of the different faculties, as well as different areas serving specific student populations. So someone specifically for Black students, for queer students. We also have someone in international student services, someone as well who's dedicated to varsity athletes. And so our role on campus is to help to direct students to maybe the needs that they're looking for at any given time. We offer mental health resources, workshops, and we can help connect them to other resources on campus as well. So I'm going to lead you all through a little bit of a presentation, since we can probably all agree that change is hard, and all of your students are now entering a new transition in life. So we'll go over 6 areas of adjustment that are typical for new university students. So the first one being emotional. So challenges within this realm include experiencing homesickness for the first time, being separated from old friends and family members, potentially coping with stress, and learning to develop strategies for handling mental health issues. So with each of these different areas that we'll cover, we'll also let you know what are some of the resources that McGill has to offer. So what can we suggest when students are experiencing different emotional needs? We have the Student Wellness Hub, which, as I mentioned, all local wellness advisors are a part of, but we have a host of other mental health professionals as well, including our counseling team. We have doctors, nurses, psychiatrists, dietitians, sexologists, just to name a few. So students can self-select and reach out for support in any of these different areas. There's also the Office for Sexual Violence Response and Education, known as OSFRS for short. If they would like to speak to a peer, they can reach out to our trained peer support center, where very well-trained students will be able to support them in things like active listening and navigating university, and specifically McGill Life. They can reach out to one of us as local wellness advisors, and they can also reach out to the Office of the Dean of Students, whose role it is to support students in many different shapes and forms, but also serve a bit of an advocacy role. Next, of course, is academic. So challenges within this realm include developing self-regulatory behaviors such as time management, working with procrastination, I'll say, rather than avoiding it since it's so common, but how to make that work for them. Establishing relationships with their professors, instructors, and teaching assistants. So this will look so very different from their high school experience likely. And of course, managing their classes and academic workload while being more independent. So we have many resources here at McGill to support with this as well. There are a number of different tutorial services as well as peer tutoring from different student associations within the different faculties and programs. There's the Student Accessibility and Achievement Office, where if a student has a diagnosis, they can reach out to an academic advisor to discuss potential academic accommodations. But this is also a helpful office for all students as they have many different programs and resources on their website about time management and student skills to succeed in university. There are many different workshops that will also fall under the Skills 21 heading where students can get some extra credit that they can take forward on their transcript showing what type of learning they've engaged in through workshops. They can access office hours and attend tutorials with their professors and TAs. There's also the McGill Writing Center and specific support for Francophone students. Next, we have social, as this is another new realm. So challenges here may include experiencing changes in relationships, whether that be familial, romantic, or different friendships, developing strategies for living with roommates or new neighbors, and handling social situations potentially involving peer pressure. What can we suggest? The wonderful Office of Campus Life and Engagement, of course, as they've mentioned, they've been in contact with your students and they'll continue to do so. We also have the Student Society of McGill University, which goes by SMOO for short. We're very big on acronyms here at McGill. So they have their first year council, which they can consult with or get involved if they'd like to. Also, each faculty also has an undergraduate society. So here we have the SUS, which would be the science undergraduate students, or AUS for arts undergraduate student society. There's a freshman student society, and every faculty will also have U0 or U1 representatives that they can seek out to. There's more peer-led support and students helping students where we have the First Friend program where a new student can connect with another new student, as well as mentorship programs, particularly through ISS has their buddy program and Student Life Ambassador. There will be orientation leaders that your students will be able to meet with. And for all those living in residence life, they're encouraged to get to know who their floor fellows are. There'll be residence life facilitators, residence council, and of course, there are also at least two local wellness advisors that they can consult with in the residences as well. Intellectual. So challenges here include experiencing a shift in previously held values, feeling uncertainty about choosing a major because there are just so many different options, also taking calculated risks that move outside their potential comfort zone. So here we do have a career planning service. Students are encouraged to reach out during their first year. Often this office gets really busy as students embark in their final year and their careers are maybe even weighing more heavily on their mind, but their offices do encourage students to reach out at any point in their academic career to ask questions or to start planning and to talk about different things to major in as well. We also have the Life After Your Degree program, and every faculty will have a student affairs office, so students can reach out to their faculty advisors, which would be overarching their entire faculty, or more specifically their departmental advisors, to make sure that they are meeting their program requirements. There are also career and internship advisors that they can reach out to. Cultural. So McGill University is a very multicultural campus, as well as, of course, the city of Montreal. So challenges here may include living and learning with a diverse student body, adjusting to language differences among classmates, roommates, and faculty, and understanding and maybe coming to terms with their own bias-related belief systems. So here we have the ISS office, so the International Student Services, where students can go with any concerns that they have about their student status, including visas or navigating any part of being an international student. There's the McGill International Student Network. As I mentioned, we have the SMU offices as well. Well, they will all have different cultural clubs if students would like to get in touch with other members of a similar cultural background. And we have Morsel, which is known as the McGill Office of Religious and Spiritual Life. If students would like a place to connect with different spiritual leaders or talk about spiritual and religious beliefs, but they also have a beautiful meditation space. It's a really nice place to take a deep breath on campus. Financial needs, of course, as well. Challenges here include developing budgeting and financial literacy skills, understanding tuition costs and navigating financial aid, and perhaps finding and managing a job. So here there is the Scholarships and Student Aid Office, sometimes a little bit of a misnomer. This office does not only deal with scholarships, but at any point we encourage your students to reach out if they have any financial concerns. There's also the My Future platform, which students can engage with to start thinking about their future careers or work studies as well as student accounts. So here we have a list of all of the different links to connect with these different resources that I've gone through at a rather rapid pace. And I've been told that you can also consult your handout that was provided through ISS and Campus Life and Engagement. You can reach out to them if you have any questions about any of these services as well as, of course, encouraging your student to reach out to any of these different resources themselves with any questions or concerns.
Thank you so much, Bianca, for that presentation and all of that helpful information. So now that Bianca has concluded the presentation, I would ask our panelists to put back on their cameras so that we can chat with you a bit. Thank you. So I haven't seen any questions pop up yet in the chat, but as we're going through some questions that we have prepared for you, if you think of anything comes to mind, don't hesitate to ask your questions in the chat. We do have a first question. Can I get the slide with the references? Absolutely. This slide will be sent out to you, to all the registrants of this presentation after the presentation. So yes, you will be receiving the slide. That's a great question to start off with. Let's see, I might start off my questions here with a question for Chris. Let's see, how often do professors, TAs, and RAs check in with students on their progress?
In engineering, class sizes are pretty large in the first few years. So you definitely aren't going to have a very close relationship unless you initiate it. Which is definitely very intimidating. But if they're all very welcoming and very nice. So in your lectures, tutorials, if you make that initiation, you start talking, ask your questions after class, they'll definitely be able to develop a better relationship. And you can kind of determine your progress that way, I would say. But yeah, professors at McGill are quite busy and very they have a lot more demands outside the classroom than teaching, as McGill is a research university. So it's hard to kind of get progress check-ins from professors, but I'd say TAs are a lot more helpful in that sense. They're also closer to you in age. Some of them have gone to McGill as well, so they're better suited, I feel like, sometimes to answer the student experience questions. So yeah, that's my perspective as an engineer.
Great. Thank you, Chris. And Solgi, I wonder if you have some different insights coming from a different program, if you have any different tips to add to that. Oh, Solgi, did you hear me? Sorry, I was just re-asking the question. So Solgi, since you come from a different program, do you have any different insights you'd like to share about how often professors, TAs, and RAs check in with you about your progress?
I would say maybe like the first few years in arts, at least, that the class sizes, as Chris said, are pretty large. And so there is like, it's not going to be easy to have a closer relationship with the professors and TAs. But I would say that it is important, and I would recommend that you do check in with TAs or your professor when you can about your work progress, any project that you're working on, essays. It is intimidating, but you get used to it. Just popping into office hours or just sending over an email I feel like in a school this size, like the undergraduate students may need to reach out first for that kind of stuff, but I do highly recommend it. It helps a lot, and all the TAs and professors that I've ever worked with have been really helpful and great.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Solgi. That's great information. Let's see. Another question about finances. So I'll start by asking Win this question. How, when, and where do you pay the tuition and housing bill for students? And how can parents see this information? I know this is a common question.
Thanks for the question. Actually, as a parent of a McGill student, I receive all information about financing through email. And before, I think within a month before the deadline, I will receive the email, and then we prepare the payment. You can do the payment through our son account in Canada, or before he comes to Canada, maybe we can make the direct payment to the school if we could. That's my experience, and the information is very clear and transparent. And it is, I think it is will be keep recorded for each student. So the parents can arrange to make the financing very transparently through the school. Thank you.
Perfect. Yes, thank you. So yes, when you were saying that it's easy, it was easy in your experience to find this information, and you were able to have good visibility and pay based on the information and the access that you had. So that's helpful. So Solgi, I wonder if you could, as a student, give us your sort of side of that about paying tuition and housing bills. Did you find that complicated to navigate, or how was that from the student side?
I would say it's really easy. Like, all payments to the school are made through the same platform. It's called Minerva, and it's like your student platform for a lot of stuff. You'll receive a login shortly, and then you have access to, that's where you register for courses. I think new students should already have their Minerva logins, but that's also where you go to your, you can access your student accounts and your account balances, and then you'll be able to make your payments through Minerva. You'll be able to see like how much tuition or how many fees you owe. And then it's super easy if you have a Canadian bank account just to make a bill payment to McGill. The same way you would pay like a credit card bill or something like that. Super easy, just like a simple bill payment, and then all your information is updated and accessible through Minerva. So I think it is a pretty simple and straightforward process. Also, every month, I believe you get an email to your student email if you have any outstanding fees. So you'll be reminded as well if you've forgotten to pay any tuition fees or any other fees.
That's great. That's super helpful. Thank you, Solgi. Let's see. We have a little finance question popping up in the chat here. Is there a central website for students to consult for applying to scholarships, awards, grants for the second year and beyond, is the question. So Chris, I might turn this one to you.
I don't think this applies to my experience. I have received awards, but that was through kind of research that I did on campus or through TA opportunities I did on campus. I'm not sure about any application processes though.
Okay. And Solgi, do you have any more insights on that question?
I would say it's really easy to do, like through Minerva as well. If you're looking for a grant or a bursary, then through the financial aid portal in Minerva, you can access that, and then you'll be prompted to contact the scholarships and financial aid office via email or by phone. They'll let you know which is more more convenient for them at the time. And then I would say it's pretty straightforward from there. You get regular updates on your application through Minerva, and then after you've reached out through Minerva, you'll be able to contact one-on-one and speak to a grant, scholarship, financial aid advisor. That's what I've done. And then from there, it's just direct communication with your financial aid or scholarships advisor.
Yes, thank you. That's great information. I see that Bianca has kindly put the student aid website in the chat, so you can check there for resources and information. And as Solgi mentioned, an appointment with the Scholarships and Student Aid Office is always really helpful as well. You can contact them, your student can contact them. So coming back, I see there's still some questions about Minerva and parent access to Minerva. So I wonder, Win, if you can explain to us a little bit about how you access Minerva as a parent.
Oh, yes, thank you. First, I received an email informing about Minerva account, and then we set up the account with our old password, and then we remember that. And I think when we have that on hand, we can access to the information in the account, and we know about the balance, about the financial requirements, about the financial aid, and something like that in the account. And each people have the username and password, and you can use that to access the information. Thank you.
Great, that's wonderful. Thank you. So you mentioned that you received an email to set up your account, your sort of parents' account on your student's Minerva. And did you have to reach out to anyone to set up that account, or you automatically received that email?
I think I can do by myself just by following the instruction in the email,
Yes.
and I can set it up very easily.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. That's very helpful. So just summarizing, because I see this question is popping up a lot. So parents do receive an email to set up their own account connected to their student's account so they can see the financial details. Yeah, so Win was saying it's quite easy to do if you follow the instructions.
I wanted to mention too, though, that for parent access of Minerva, I believe that your student will need to grant access to parents through the Minerva portal. So you'll have to put in their name and their email so that they can receive that email to have access to their student's Minerva account.
Perfect. And Chris, I see you nodding. Did you have a similar something to add in terms of granting parent access?
Yeah, I was agreeing with Zoe. You have to grant your parent access to your Minerva. It's super easy to do. Probably McGill has information on their website on how to do it. You just put in your parents' email and grant them access to your Minerva finances.
Perfect. Thank you. So ask your student to grant you access through Minerva, and then you'll get that login email that Win was mentioning to be able to set up your account. So from there, it should be easy to access. Perfect. All right. So I guess staying on the subject of finances, how much should we expect a student to spend on top of schooling, eating, and lodging? I know this is a common question that comes up for parents. What's the monthly budget? So I'll start with you, Wen, if you could give us a little bit of information about your experience with your student.
Yes, actually, we are very lucky that my son received a financial aid or scholarship from the university. So I think averagely, including the two, about the accommodation cost in McGill, in Montreal. I think my son rents a room in a house, sharing the house with the other two students, and the cost for the housing is around 8 or 900 Canadian dollars, and then it also costs about 300 Canadian dollars for the food and the meal. And in addition to that, of course, is the tuition fee for the university. But the tuition fee depends on the bachelor or on the subject that you follow in McGill, and it's different from different college in the McGill University. But if you have a scholarship or you have financial aid from school, it will be very great so that it can support the finance for the student. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, thank you so much, Rin. So Win was mentioning that in terms of schooling costs, of course, that's variable per student depending on different factors and also depending on whether they have a scholarship. But in terms of living costs, Win was saying that her student pays between 800 and 900 Canadian dollars per month to rent a house with roommates, and spends about 300 Canadian dollars per month on food. So that's a budget of about 1,200 per month, just for sort of living costs. So I wonder if, Solgi, if you have any insight on that from the student perspective about your sort of monthly budget.
I would say it depends on the student for sure. Like baseline, like paying rent and bills, that's one thing. But I think like for other things, like it's definitely good to have some sort of a budget like there for like going out and activities, like studying in coffee shops or going out with friends. Other essentials that you might need. Like I would say it depends on like what's going on, but maybe like a couple $100 more, a few $100 more a month, just like for those sort of like entertainment activities, getting coffees, eating out. I feel like that also like enhances your like your McGill experience just to be able to do that with new friends and stuff. So because it definitely like it can be a lot to just like stay on campus, and like just like live there the whole time, eat just the cat food, It's good to also branch out, explore the neighborhoods and stuff. So yeah.
Yes. Very true. Thank you for that addition as well. Thank you, Solgi. And what about you, Chris? I feel like this is a question where it's interesting to get everyone's perspective because, as Solgi mentioned, it could be so different person to person.
Yeah, I very much agree with Solgi. Like, I would, if you're gonna like give an allowance to your student or something, talk to them kind of about like figure out first how like they go about their first month, what they need food wise, and what they want to do outside of just basic living needs. Because I definitely think budgeting for experiences is really valuable. It's important to not only focus on school. It's also important to experience some stuff outside of the university, like exploring Montreal, uh, restaurants, bars, and any other kind of diverse experiences we have in the city. It's a great city, great music scene, great art scene, tons of things to do. So take advantage of that, I would say, and that definitely should be budgeted. But other than that, yeah, I do spend around $800 to $900 on rent per month, and then around I think as well around $300 on food. Food got a little variable just with inflation. Um, yeah, but also if you're a first year student, you're probably in residence, so you don't have to budget as much for food considering you'll be on the meal plan. Yeah.
Great points. Thank you so much, Chris. So yeah, we're kind of on the same page that about $1,200 a month is like strictly living cost seems about right, but then to budget some extra for the opportunity to go out and have social activities. I echo what Chris says as well. Montreal is an excellent student city. There's a lot to explore. There's a lot to offer. So McGill also has a lot to offer, but we definitely encourage students to also break through that McGill bubble and go out into the world and sort of explore a little bit. So we have another question on another topic, which is healthcare, which is a great question for us to cover. So a question, could you talk about healthcare? What do students do when they get sick? Bianca, if you don't mind, I might turn this one over to you.
Absolutely. So for students who, all students can access the Student Wellness Hub if they're feeling unwell. And so if they'd like to consult with a doctor or a nurse, I will share a link to the Student Wellness Hub website. But what they need to do would be to call the Student Wellness Hub directly and book an appointment. There aren't any walk-in services at this time. So students can call, they'll be connected to the frontline staff, and we do have a number of general practitioners who would be able to assist. All students also have their insurance policies, regardless of where they're coming from, which should it be an escalated need, if a student needs to access a hospital, for example, then their insurance would cover them for that as well. So I never want students to hesitate to do that. Also, something interesting when you're staying in Montreal, 811 is just a 3-digit number that anyone can access, which will connect students if they're unsure and they want to speak to someone right away, to nurses or social workers. So whether it be a physical health concern or a mental health concern, they can consult to see what do you think that would be the best next step. There are also a number of telehealth options that, for example, if someone is feeling unwell and they don't want their initial step to go directly to the clinic, they absolutely should. But if they wanted to consult from home, I'll also send a link of different telehealth resources that students can access. So for international students in particular, we have access to a service called Get Maple, where students can book an appointment to meet with a doctor virtually. So let's say they have a prescription, or if it's something that's recurring, that they have an idea maybe of what it already is, and they need a prescription filled, then they can also consult with that. And there are lots of options for Canadian students as well. I'll start to populate the chat with some different links, but I'd hope I'm happy to answer more questions about that.
Great, thank you. I do see a follow-up question for injuries like accident injuries, like broken bones, like skiing or slipping. Would the question, would that be covered by the school's insurance if a student goes to the hospital?
I won't quote the insurance packages, however, I'm happy to link to them, but that does seem like something that would be covered. As an international student, you'd have access to Blue Cross. I see Christopher's also nodding, so perhaps. And also all of them will have all of the different all of the different insurance packages include dental, and there's even a dental clinic at McGill. But yes, these are all things that students will have access to.
Yes, wonderful. Yes. So you just mentioned this, so I'll just bring it up that in the chat, dental just came up. So yes, dental is included in the student insurance plan. So that's great to know. And Chris, yeah, we'd love to know from the student perspective a little bit, your experience navigating healthcare as a student.
Yeah, the international health insurance plan, if you're an international student, is a good plan. I would recommend going through Maple if you do have problems. I think it's the most convenient. Wait times at the Wellness Hub can be really long, and especially if you're feeling sick, it's not fun to wait on hold for a while. But Get Maple is great for getting prescriptions, getting anything you need. For serious issues, I have had to go to the hospital, and the McGill University Health Centers are well aware of how to adapt to international health insurance, and they're very knowledgeable with how to handle it. So you will get the care that you need. Similarly for dental and any prescriptions you get here, I do recommend trying to get some of your prescriptions here. Canadian healthcare is a little nicer than my US healthcare in terms of costs. So if you can, if you have some prescriptions, maybe look into doing it here instead. You might save some money.
That's great. Thank you so much, Chris. That's really good, good, encouraging information to hear. And what about you, Solgi? I don't know if you had anything particular to add for your experience sort of navigating healthcare as a student.
I have some experience with the Wellness Hub. I'd say my experience with the Wellness Hub was pretty straightforward. Like Bianca said, you call the Wellness Hub, and then you're able to make an appointment with whoever you want to speak to, whether that's like a psychologist or a nurse or a general practitioner. And then from there, you can be directed to a specialist or anywhere you want to access the help that you need through the Wellness Hub with the medical professionals that they have like on site, McGill. So I think that's good too. If you it's not necessarily like an urgency or an emergency, you just want to speak to someone like a doctor, a nurse, anyone. You can go through the Wellness Hub and make an appointment, and it's you may have to wait a little, but if it's not like an urgency, then it's fine. And I would say that it's a really convenient way to like get help if you need it.
Thank you so much. That's wonderful. So yeah, so definitely there is good coverage available, a lot of services available. But I think also the Wellness Hub here at McGill, we focus a lot on prevention as well as just sort of injuries and illnesses. So I wonder if Bianca, if you have any like top wellness tips that you'd like to share with the group.
Of course, I'll also address very quickly question that I saw in the chat, and then I'll answer your
Mhm.
question, which is I recognize that I shared links to both the Blue Cross International Health Insurance Plan as well as the SSMU one. So I just want to clarify, it's because I'm not 100% sure if everyone here in the audience are parents to international students. If you are, then you can disregard the SMU one. So the SMU package is really for Canadian or Quebec resident students, but anyone who's an international student, you're automatically enrolled in the Blue Cross. You won't be accessing both insurance policies. In terms of my health and wellness tips, a lot of what's been said already, I would say that finding a school and life balance is really important. That obviously all students who are admitted to McGill University, they're all typically, I mean, obviously you've proven yourself. They're all highly intelligent, bright, hardworking students. And so I often say that, of course, you've proven yourself, you're here, there's no doubt about your intelligence, but what can be really challenging and what there is a learning curve, sometimes, at least for me, during my undergrad at McGill many years ago, is adjusting to the university life. It is different from any other academic experience. So being kind to yourself in adjusting to a new educational system, and trying to be kind to yourself, if there is a bit of that learning curve, and if your grades might look a little bit different, especially at the beginning, but also to build a healthy foundation. So when it gets busy and there are so many friends to make and there's a lot to do, to not neglect the basics, like checking in on how are you eating, how are you sleeping, and making sure that you are fostering those connections and making time to do the things that you really enjoy, and that bring joy. And of course, while it's important to study, just making sure that you're not spending all of your time alone or in the library, that having that balance will help you to succeed academically as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Bianca, for those tips. And on that note, I think that's so important about sort of work-life balance and students finding a balance to strike between everything that they're doing. I would have a question for our students here. How did you as a student manage your workload? And do you have any organizing tips or resources to share? Solgi, if you'd like to start out, if you don't mind.
I feel that it was definitely like a big adjustment in my first year, like adjusting to this course load. It is a lot different from how I feel like at least like in Ontario, how high school is. I would say that it's important for the beginning of the semester to organize yourself, like have all your syllabi and your important key dates, due dates, midterm and exam dates set out, so you know what's coming for the rest of the semester. I think that's really important, just so you have like an idea and a timeline of what's happening from the beginning. I would say just to try to stay organized as best you can. It can be stressful, but it's not the end of the world to like miss a class here and there, and not get the notes for something. Like it'll all work out as long as you're organized and you try to stay on top of things like as best as you can. I think especially McGill students, like we put so much pressure on ourselves to like do really well and like keep up with all our work perfectly. But I think that as long as you stay organized from the start and try not to procrastinate too much, maybe do some work a little bit every day, that you will be fine, even if it feels like really overwhelming when it comes to midterm come the end of September and October. I think that staying organized from the start and sort of keeping track with keeping on top of work as best as you can, and staying organized with especially due dates and timelines. I think it's all going to be okay, and don't stress too much about school and stuff. Like you'll be able to manage it.
That's great. Thank you, Solgi. And what about you, Chris? Do you have any tips about managing workload and work-life balance to share?
I think like the biggest shift from high school into university is that you're not on such a strict routine anymore. It's really up to you as an adult to start developing that routine. And I think that's really important from the start. Make sure you're scheduling, a good amount of sleep every night. Try to get 8-9 hours of sleep. That's really, really important to staying healthy. Make sure you're eating and you're not eating alone. You're going with a few other friends that you find, so you can talk about your days, talk about other things other than school. Those are my biggest things in your routine is make sure you're sleeping the same time every night, getting food at the same time every day, It really helps when you're scheduling and organizing. And then inside the classroom, the easiest thing you can do is just go to class. It's really easy to start saying, "Oh, I don't have attendance anymore. The classes are big. I don't need to go." Um, I wouldn't recommend that. Go to class. It's the easiest way to stay atop of your notes, your classwork, and then also make friends in class. Just a simple, "Hey, like I'm Chris. What other major are you in? What residence are you in? You want to make a group chat. Get that going in the class because then it'll help if ever you do need to miss class or if you're studying for that midterm, you can make study groups. Studying alone is really sad. I love studying with my friends. Even if like we go to a client section of the library, it's really reassuring to know that we're all working together on something that can be difficult. So those are like my biggest tips. And also just take everything in stride. It's going to be okay. The first 2 weeks might seem overwhelming with like lots of syllabuses, midterms, exams, maybe even ways of teaching that you've never experienced before. So just take a deep breath, settle in. You have a month until you have at least a month before anything gets really, any assignments start to come in, any kind of exams start to come in. It's going to be okay. And then try to like gauge your interest, like gauge like your success on that first exam. Don't worry about the grade. Worry about what you did and did right on the exam, how you studied for it, and then you can learn for what comes next. Yeah.
That's great advice, Chris. Thank you so much. And I'm wondering from a parent's perspective, how do you help support your student and help them manage all this from afar?
Oh, yes, I think it is a very interesting topic. This is my first and top worries before my son came to McGill about 2 years ago. I think before that, I had to prepare for him a lot of skills, especially some skills to live independently, like very simple cooking and washing and something like that. And after that, I also encouraged my son to find some hobbies. So in addition to study, what do you like? Like my son likes football, so it's very good. So I try to encourage my son when coming to McGill, you should find a football team, and you should maybe a week spend 2 or 3 times with your football team, just a way to relax yourself. And I also know that Montreal is a very good city and has many outdoor activities. And I always want my son after school he can go with his friends to the outdoor activities, and this is really important. And from the parent perspective, I think that we should keep the regular connection with our son, our daughter in McGill, because sometimes when you just make a phone call for about 2 or 3 minutes, but you can know how your son is feeling. Is he happy? Is he good? Or does he have any issues that need your help and need your support? First, when my son, I remember, came to McGill, almost every day, we make a phone call with him. Maybe just checking. I'm not talking very much, but I can see my son and know that he's fine. So that's enough. It's very important. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. That's wonderful advice. So I'll just summarize that if you don't mind. I think the sound was just a little bit fuzzy. So for those who might not have been able to hear well, so first of all, helping the student just develop some life skills to help them through this journey. So knowing how to cook, knowing how to do their washing is great advice, and making sure that they have balance by encouraging hobbies. So Wynn was mentioning joining the football team for her son was a great way to do that. And then also encouraging regular connection. So just like quick, frequent phone calls to check in, see how your student is doing is a great way to just maintain that connection and help support them. Those are great. That's great advice. Thank you so much, Wynn. Let's see. I see in the chat we've had a lot of questions popping about textbooks. So I'll get to that one now. Thank you for your patience. We were very into the topic of work-life balance, but let's see. So how can students find information on the required textbooks? So as a student, how do you know what textbooks you need to get for your classes? I guess, Chris, would you like to start us off with that? I see you nodding.
Yeah, I mean, engineering at McGill is probably the most textbook heavy faculty. out of any of them. And I've never bought a textbook while at McGill, because there's lots of ways you can get around buying them. They're absurdly expensive, and I guess a lot of profs are also recognizing how expensive the textbooks are. So often they will attach not a required textbook, but a recommended textbook to go along with the course. Um, but they'll also try to find ways where you can get through the course without buying it. A lot of times they have their own problems too to practice off of. Their notes are great as well. If ever a prof really doesn't want you to get the textbook, um, you can often rent it from Redpath, which is probably better than buying it if you're only going to use it for a semester. Redpath does have any required textbook that Redpath, sorry, is the McGill Library. The McGill Library will have any textbook that a prof wants you to have for a class. And then there's also often free textbooks online that you can find PDF versions, which are often better than carrying around a 5-pound textbook to class every day. And since we're much more like electronic based, finding it online is a lot easier. Also, post COVID, a lot of profs kind of adapted their curriculums to not have hard textbooks because it was hard to get on campus and get those kind of resources if you needed. So I would say, in my experience, I haven't had to worry about it that much. Try whatever you can to not have to buy the textbook. It's not worth it usually.
Thank you, Chris. And I see also in the chat, Kay has put in a link towards information about ordering textbooks, as well as a link to the James Bookstore and a Facebook exchange group for parents, for students to exchange their textbooks. So a way to get used textbooks at good prices. So just some additional advice to supplement that question. So that's great. Thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and move on. I see we're getting close to the end of our session. So there's some great questions I'd like to cover before we wrap up. So we are getting close to the beginning of the journey, right? So students are going to be starting very soon. Orientation starts next week. I would love to know, what can students expect from the first week at McGill and really the beginning of their time? Is there any particular advice, anything they should know that you wish you'd known or that you wish your student had known? So I'm going to start with you, Solgi, if you could let us know what you think you would have liked to know going into your first year.
I think I would say, like, my biggest advice would be not to fret too much. Like, don't stress out. Like, I know it's a lot, especially just going into it, everything's a lot at the beginning. If you're living in res, that's a lot. Moving out, like Frosh is a lot. Like, you're meeting so many new people, but like the dust will settle and it'll be all good. I would say just don't stress too much. Try to have a good time too. It's a really fun and unique experience to be like a first year student living in Montreal. I wish when I was in my first year, I wasn't so like worried all the time so that I could like enjoy it more. Like there's really no time where you're going to be like always on campus. Like everything's fresh and new with like thousands of new people. It is really fun. I would say school is really important, but so is like your health and your mental health and like checking in with yourself and doing things that you like, keeping up with your hobbies and exercise and stuff. And also, my biggest advice would also be to like keep your options open. Like I know that if you're like a U0 student or even a U1 student incoming, you might have like a certain major or minors that are like you're totally set on. But I'd say give other things a chance, especially in your first year. And something that you haven't really thought about might pique your interest, and you might be influenced to, change your path or just, like keep your options open when it comes to your academic career for your undergrad at McGill. Like there's so many things to learn. There's so many different programs that it's good to give things a try and not just stick with one thing that you're like tunnel visioned into, because there's just so much to learn.
That's great. Thank you so much, Solgi. That's great advice. And what about you, Chris? Do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, like I think so you mentioned Frosh. That's a big thing here at McGill. So what it is, it's essentially a 4-day orientation for first year students to kind of get to know the school, meet people, and meet the city. So if you haven't signed up for it yet and you're on campus right now, all the registration tents for Frosh are open on Lower Field. which is like the main quad campus at McGill in front of Redpath all around. Ask around to find where your faculty is registering people to sign up for Frosh. They'll be happy to direct you on how to sign up, how it works, what's offered. Essentially, it's a lot of main things, a lot of like bonding with your group to meet new people. There's an amazing race around Montreal usually, a food crawl. Every night is followed with concerts usually from DJs or local musicians here in Montreal. So it's a great way to kind of get acclimated into the city, and it's a really safe space to do it. Everyone's highly trained to how to deal with any issues. There's also older students that are around, so also if you're feeling anxious, they'll be able to answer any of those like burning questions before you dive into classes. And then once classes start, you're still in an add drop period, which is when you can still register for new courses, drop any new courses. So you can kind of get the feel for the course. If you don't like it, you can drop it. Or if you want to add more courses because you feel like you want to do something else, you can still add it during that time. Also, during that time, profs can't give you any assignments that are graded. So it's a good time to kind of do some stuff outside the class because the course load hasn't really started yet. And McGill offers a lot of great things during the first few weeks to kind of, meet new people, learn about the university. Usually the residences plan a lot of events for students to do things. McGill, the engineers put on something called OAP, which is a music and art festival in Lower Field, where you can go get cheap food, cheap drinks, and also listen to music every night. It's a great way to meet new people and hang out. And yeah, I think those are my biggest advices for your first few weeks at McGill. It's a big kind of like everyone getting back, very fun environment. Take advantage of that. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you so much, Chris. So yeah, Chris mentioned there are a lot of things happening for orientation, right? So one great thing about Frosh is that it's student led. So it's totally led by students. But the university also offers a lot of orientation. So I just popped in the chat the link where you have actually links to register for all kinds of university and student run orientation events. Frosh is at that link. Also, university-wide events such as our big Discover McGill Fair, which is happening next Tuesday. We encourage your students to come, get some free food, and faculty orientations. It's all available there at that link. So, and then I'd love to know from you, Win, in terms of your students' first week and your experience as a parent going through that, what do you wish you had known or that you wish your student had known at that time?
Yes, when my son started at McGill, I think right before that, the more we prepare, the more we get ready when we came to Montreal. And about the orientation week, my son had registered it right in advance. And when he was there, with the COVID time, so he just attended the orientation week online, but he was very excited. And I just told him that for the first week in McGill, you just be relaxed, be calm, and get to know the thing and get to know the people. And he spent that week on exploring all the information about the university, about the city, and he gets to know the people. He makes friends. I think it's very good. And then in the second year, he's also registered to be a member of the orientation team to provide the guidance to the first year students. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you so much, Win. So yes, participating in all these events for first year students that are happening and yeah, registering in advance. These are great. These are great tips. So thank you so much for that. Oh, wonderful. I do see, I'm just checking in the chat to see if we have some questions that have been popping up that we haven't covered. Let's see. Someone was saying that their son will be living on campus, but they haven't heard anything about purchasing the meal plan. Not sure if a link has been put in the chat, but there is information on the meal plans available at the McGill website. So I think, I don't know if Win-Win, if you could maybe try to pop that in the chat, that would be super helpful. But the information should all be available on the McGill website. About access to course syllabuses, just a quick question. Maybe if I could ask either Chris or Solgi, anyone who has the answer sort of handy, how can you get your course syllabus for a course?
Yeah, so I would say don't worry about it now. You'll be able to access your course syllabi when classes begin. So I know even though you're registered for courses now, most of the time you won't be able to access them until the class actually begins. So at the end of this month, you'll be able to access your syllabi through My Courses usually. That's like the course online platform that we have. Otherwise, sometimes some professors will email the syllabi directly to you as well. But the syllabi is where you can get all the information about required textbooks, anything like that. So for now, before classes start, like don't worry about that. As Chris mentioned, you also have like around a 2-week add drop period. So during that time, it's plenty of time to be able to get any of the required texts or required materials you need for a class, and you'll be able to access the syllabi in class or when class starts.
That's great. Thank you so much. And one last little question I'll address before, I think this will be the last one. We're running out of time before we close. Someone was asking about the holiday break, which is always a big question for parents. When can I see my student again? When is the holiday break? So the holiday break, when put the link in the chat to the McGill important key dates. So the link there, I'll just put it right back in also just so that you have it handy. So there you have it. So the exams end quite late, actually. They end on December 21st and classes start back on January 4th, but exam dates will be different for all students. So your student may get lucky and not have exams up to the last minute, but you never know right now. So hang tight and get your students' exam dates before making too many plans would be my advice. So all right. Well, thank you so much, everyone. This has been such an informative session. We've learned a lot. I hope that we've answered a lot of your questions. There was I think a question as to whether the transcript of the chat could be sent out afterwards. I'm not sure if that's something that's possible. I don't know if Kay, you could answer that question in the chat because I'm not sure actually of the answer. Oh, you did. Thank you. So she did answer. I just missed it in the chat. So thank you so much. So yeah, so let's see, just a couple of quick closing notes for you. Hopefully this session has been helpful too. There's a lot of other sessions happening for you and for your students coming up. So in terms of parent tent events, there's another session online tomorrow. So tips for international parents happening on Sunday, August 20th, another virtual session. We would encourage you to join if you are an international parent. There are in-person sessions happening as well. So sessions on finance, wellness, career planning, academic advising, and more, as well as campus and library tours are also being offered tomorrow, Sunday, August 20th. You can register online. I'll just pop this in the chat to register. Here's the link to, KR beat me to it. There we go. Let's see. So, sure, that went through. So there you go. So there's the link to register for any of these other events, but you can also come see us in person on Lower Field here on campus at the Parents Tent event. We have lots of services from McGill who are represented there and can continue answering your questions. It's possible to register for the upcoming Parents Tent sessions there if space allows, directly on site at the Parents Tent. And if ever you cannot attend any virtual events, but you're interested in doing it, you can still register for the event, and then all registrants will be sent the online event by email afterwards. So you will be able to get the information even if you can't be there live to ask your questions. So there we go. Thank you so much for being here. We are so excited for you and for your students. We're excited to see you perhaps at Parents Tent and to see your students at orientation next week. So we wish you a wonderful rest of your weekend, a smooth move-in weekend, and a wonderful beginning of your journey as McGill parents. So welcome to the McGill family and good luck with everything. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful day.